Hello, all Hoosier fans, Hoosier haters, and everyone in between. This is the Crimson Coliseum podcast. And on today's episode, I've got Jack with me.
What's up?
And today we're going to be doing power rankings. So we have concepts of a ranking. And I don't know if you get that joke, Jack. But
I don't, probably not. No.
it's a joke from the debate. You'll figure it out when you're older. Uh,
So true.
but we're gonna start. I'm gonna talk about my rankings. Jack's gonna talk about his rankings, and then we'll compare and contrast later. So for me, starting out at the bottom, the it's still the same tiers. Some teams have swapped tiers, but it's still the same tiers. So at number 18, the bottom of the conference, UCLA. After last week,
Yeesh.
UCLA is just got it just daunted. They had a daunted experience against Indiana. Lost 42 to 13. Their next week, their game this week at LSU. May God
Uh,
have mercy upon their wretched souls. They are.
poor,
I think they also have
poor
Oregon.
Bruins.
I think they have Oregon and USC next.
That's rough.
Brutal. Um,
If they couldn't survive at home against Indiana, they're gonna get killed.
yeah, their stats aren't going to look pretty.
That's
So
not gonna go
and they have
well.
and they haven't looked pretty so far, anyways. So in
Yeah.
terms of the Big Ten, they are last in offensive yards, 290 and a half, and 16th in defensive yards allowed with 354. One of only, I think, a couple of teams that have more given up more yards than they have gained. And all of these are yards and not points, because I think yards and points is obviously very important. It tells you the game, but yards is a pretty good indicator of how well the team did outside of the points. Because if you give up more points than you gain, and but you win, it's not a great win. It's not a win that you can say, oh well, we dominated consistently.
Hmm.
At number 17, I have Purdue. Both teams are down three in my rankings. You could probably assume which three have jumped up, just because they were on buys. I gave them the benefit. I gave them a little bit higher rankings because of buys, but Purdue got absolutely.
Uh,
They got the business end of what Notre Dame was cooking. Uh, 13th in points so far, 372 and a half yards. 15th in yards allowed, 366. And this week is probably going to be a very, very big game for them. Uh, they've got Oregon State, probably their most winnable game for us this season. And we'll see if they're actually decent. Because like I've always said, Purdue is a bowl team if the home and away flipped. Because we talked about it at the beginning of the season, their winnable games are on the road and the hard games are at home. But the reason
which is
why I
both a
still
blessing and a curse.
yeah,
Like, if you can manage those road games and go out and win them, then you could end up with more wins
yeah.
potentially. But this team, from the looks of it, can't even handle like the home games.
Well, we don't know that
So
yet, obviously,
we don't
but
know that yet, but like really tough outing against Notre Dame. And I'll get to it.
yeah.
Get to when we get to my rankings, I'll talk about it more. But
But like it's obviously if Notre Dame is a better team and they beat Purdue by way more than Indiana. Why do I have UCLA still lower? Well, UCLA did not show me anything different than their game against Hawaii. They still they scored I think 16 points. Wait, no, 13. They scored 13 and 16 against Hawaii. So like they dropped down to points, which kind of makes sense. Indiana's the better opponent, but they have led. This quarter. I think I can't remember the Twitter name again. I had it earlier. Big Ten Huddle. They posted the percentage snaps that a team has been in the league, been in the lead in the Big Ten. UCLA by far has the worst with 1.73%.
that's
And
crazy.
the second closest is Purdue with 44%, which kind of makes sense since they were playing Indiana State, which it's Indiana State. But I still think Purdue had a much more. I think Purdue had a better Week 1, then UCLA, and these two don't really change it. These next three are in the same order as they were in week 3. Minnesota, Northwestern, and Maryland. Maryland probably had the best win against Virginia, 27-13, but Northwestern had a good win against Eastern Illinois, 31-7, and Minnesota had a good win, 27-0 over Nevada. Minnesota offensively is 15th with 350.7 yards, but third defensively with 186.3 yards, which is really impressive, but it's also Nevada who they are facing. Eh. We'll see what happens whenever they play Iowa, which their Big Ten season starting this
That's
week versus
gonna be a
Iowa.
low scoring game.
Take the under, I beg you.
Like just looking at like Minnesota's defense, they've only allowed 186.3 yards a game. That's third in the Big Ten.
And then just a little sneak peek into Iowa. Right now, they're 10th in your offensive yards per game at 419. Granted, they haven't played many opponents outside of Iowa State, which they lost. But beside the point, back to this. Northwestern is 17th in offensive yards per game, 355 and a half, and 7th in defensive yards with 232.3. And it's a good win for them, but they're going to Washington, which will be an interesting game, which will be a very important game for them. And then Maryland's kind of the exact opposite of these teams. They're 7th in offensive yards, 453, but last in defensive yards, 388.
And they
Uh,
haven't played good teams either.
they lost to Michigan State, which is why I still have them non-bowl contention because they're 0-1 conference.
But
This week,
like they've played
yeah,
Virginia, and who did they play? Did they play like Villanova earlier this
UConn,
year?
UConn, and
UConn? Okay.
they play Villanova this week.
They play Villanova
Um,
this week. Okay, okay.
if they
But
beat
still,
Michigan,
those are
yeah,
not good teams.
yeah, if they beat Michigan State, if they were able to beat Michigan State, they would have been easily in bowl contention. But their defense really concerns me. Last in the conference in yards, I don't like that. But going into bowl contenders, we got Wisconsin down one from 12 to 13. And I debate about putting them up and not bowl contenders because of their team stats, but also they have I wait until they play a Big Ten opponent, which they won't this week. Uh, Wisconsin 2-1, 15th in offensive yard production, 354, and 12th in defensive with 301.7. Granted, this is kind of skewed because they got whipped by Bama, which expected. Um, so I don't really know much about this team except for it's not they didn't have great wins. I'm concerned because
Mhm.
they really couldn't dominate against Western Michigan and South Dakota. Both just simple 14-point wins, which are
Yeah.
good, not super fantastic. At number 12 is Washington, down one. The stats really favor them. Fifth in offensive yards, ninth in defensive yards, 478.3 offense, 279.3 defensively. Last week but the reason why they're down is because they lost the Apple Cup, which
Mm.
why do you run a speed option? Why? It worked in the Super Bowl, yes, and it's college, so it might work. But why do you run a speed option to the short side of the field? Oh, well, I'll never
On
know.
the
But
short side of the field, that is a choice.
I think it was the short side of the field. Um,
Just
but
losing the Apple Cup in general just loses like especially after the way they exited and left like Washington State basically on the side of the road to just
yeah,
perish. And the fact that Washington State still was able to beat them is kind of embarrassing.
yeah. And to celebrate the we're back 12 is here.
The word Pac-12, that's crazy.
They need to get all of the state schools. Call it State
I
12.
mean, College State 12.
But getting back on track, the team that jumped both Wisconsin and Washington was Michigan State. They didn't have to do much to do it. They're 11th in offensive yards, 411.7, fourth in defensive yards, 242.3. And they beat Prairie View A&M. Who? Like,
Who is that?
it's an expected win, but because they won and Washington and Wisconsin lost, move them up 2 spots. But they have to keep this up. They're going to Boston College, who's around that ranked. I know they lost last week, but yeah. Uh, Still gotta keep it up.
Solid team. Solid team.
Good. You just gotta keep it going. At number 10, we got a 10-9 swap. So we got Rutgers at 10. They didn't play last week, but put Illinois over them. Offense is still tied for fourth with 495.5 yards. Defense is 10th with 284 yards. They were one of the 4 teams on a bye last week, and they're playing Virginia. They're going to Virginia Tech this week. Um, Illinois winning last week moves them up 1. It just is what it is. And the first ranked team is going to be coming up, but just with Rutgers, I expect them to be a very high record team. I don't know if I'm going to put them super high up in the rankings, but they just got to continue what they're doing, go to Virginia Tech and win, and start the Big Ten season out strong. At number 9 is the first ranked team, number 24, Illinois. I am still wary on them. That's why I only have them at 9. 12th in offensive yards, 387.3. 8th in defensive yards, 247.4. They beat Central Michigan 30-9, which it's good. That's really good. Good for them. This week, they're at Nebraska. It's a ranked battle.
That's gonna be fun.
Yeah. Keep momentum. They were able to keep the momentum from the Kansas game, but next week is super, super important for them. Flat out, I don't trust them still. They got outgained by Kansas, and if it wasn't for the Kansas quarterback throwing 3 picks, Kansas would have won that game. Like 4 turnovers from him and like one at the last possession. Like Kansas still could have won that game. Like I'm not super impressed by it. But that's just me. They could shock. I could eat crow next week if they beat Nebraska. In which case, good for them. I'll move them up. But going into bowl favorites now, you probably noticed that there's a team missing from the bowl contenders, and we'll get to them in a moment. But first, going down 1 is number 18 Michigan. But Alex, why do you have 2 ranked teams above Indiana? Because I'm a believer. And hopium is rising, and it's the hope that kills me. Back to it. Michigan is 2-1. They're down 1 from 7th. 17th in offensive yards, 13th in defensive yards, 329.3 on offense, 304.3 on defense. Better result against Arkansas State than last week, but that's like improving on the sequel trilogy in Star Wars. You didn't have to do much to do that.
Only 10-point win is crazy.
Only a 10-point win in Arkansas. Arkansas State definitely got a lot of those back at the end, but
Yeah.
what concerns me and why they're down, they're still bowl favorites to me because I still think that defense is going to carry them to 6 wins. But what concerns
Hopefully.
me a lot is the quarterback position.
Yeah.
You got a good running game. You got a good defense. But
You can't win in today's game without a decent passing attack.
yeah, and Alex Orji is a good rushing quarterback. But this just gives me like when did we have 2 quarterbacks? That was
Last year,
yeah, Sorsby and Taven Jackson a
Taven.
little bit. But it wasn't like a Taven came in for just rushing plays type of thing.
Yeah.
I'm trying to find another instance where there's like 2 quarterbacks.
But yeah,
Uh, yeah.
their quarterback play has just been non-existent so far this
Yeah.
year.
Yeah, like Warren
And
had like 3 interceptions. Like it wasn't great. Um, but their next game is going to be a major, major test against
USC,
number 11 USC, which
that's gonna be fun. I think that's gonna determine like whether or not like that Texas game was like a fluke.
Yeah.
I think if they get cleaned out against USC, which not gonna lie, I kind of expect them to,
Hmm.
then I think that we can just get Michigan out of the AP poll, like getting any votes. Like
Yeah, yeah, because
I
like,
think we can just get
yeah,
Michigan out of the conversation, out of good teams in the Big Ten. I'm excited for
yeah.
that to happen
All
because I
right,
think we're
now,
kind of wasting our
yeah,
time talking about Michigan being good, if
yeah.
I'm being real.
Says the Penn State fan.
So true.
Says the man with the Steelers hat on his head and seeing the next Steelers in Michigan
Let's go. Hey, at least the Steelers can win games with carried by their defense.
and their
Important
kicker.
games. And their kicker.
Wait, no,
Go
no,
Buys.
no. Like, you're the Pittsburgh Steelers are another yellow and black team that I've seen before. It's Iowa, but we'll get to them in a second. Getting absolutely
Yep.
carried by your defensive special teams.
Yep.
But anyways, number
We're here
seven
for it.
is Indiana, and
Woohoo!
up one. They're second in offensive and defensive yards, 515 yards of offense and 180 yards of defense. Curtis Rourke got Big Ten Player of the Week on offense this week from their win against UCLA. And this week they're facing UNC Charlotte. They should win that easily.
Hopefully. Pressing.
Yeah, I'm nervous. I'm always going to be nervous when it
I'm
comes to
not gonna
IU.
lie, me too. I won't not be nervous until we're up by like 28 in the
Yeah,
second quarter or whenever we're up by 28. It
or
doesn't
maybe
like
just that. Just I'm
like
always nervous whenever my team plays. I don't know. It might just be human nature. But one thing that separates this Indiana team from Indiana teams of the past, when looking at that game, there were so many times where Indiana could have just folded and I wouldn't have been shocked. Like, I would
mhm.
have said, this makes a lot of sense. This has happened
Af
before.
after like every penalty, every like
Two
whether those
players
penalties calls were valid or not, two players ejected for targeting,
two
like
players got ejected for targeting.
the
Leonard,
momentum shift at the end of the half, with UCLA scoring a touchdown, like we could have given up another one at the beginning of the second half and they could have gone on a run and
especially with the
absolutely
targeting penalty being on that first drive of the third quarter.
yeah, yeah.
But
So
like, this team is absolutely much different than teams of the past because I remember a time whenever our best defender got ejected for targeting. We were up two scores against Cincinnati at home, and like, it just crumbled from there, and the season just died from there.
shout out to Micah McFadden.
Hey, he's starting linebacker for the Giants,
That's well, I
which
mean, for the Giants.
it's the Giants.
It's
But hey, we've got IU players in the league. I'll tell you
mhm.
what, and they are starting. Also, Ryder Anderson's also starting for that team too on the edge, from what I saw. Hey,
Um,
if it gets IU players in the league, hey, Joe Buck, we got to listen to Joe Buck attempt to sing the Indiana or Indiana on national television.
Joe Buck.
Keyword is attempt.
What a
No,
man.
not trying to insult Joe Buck there. Like,
What
I'm very happy that he's representing Indiana and got to mess with Troy Aikman, the UCLA grad there
that's funny.
on the broadcast.
Did they
But
actually do that on the broadcast?
yeah, there's a clip of it.
I need to look that up for real.
I think
That's funny.
it was the fourth quarter, but Indiana has had a great start to the season. We're one third of the way to 9 Indiana, and this has been the meme team. Nine
That's
Indiana,
spaghetti.
but Indiana's halfway there. Whoa, to getting to a bowl game, and leading the Big Ten in sacks is going to be a good way of doing that.
Hmm.
Being second in yards, and leading the league in touchdowns too is going to be a great offensive way of helping out with that.
Hopefully we can keep that up.
Obviously, like, we've had very easy opponents. I'm not gonna disagree, but got to keep it up. Got UNC Charlotte. That should be a good win on Saturday, and then the test begins with Maryland.
Hmm.
But
For
next
sure.
up, number 6. is Iowa. Those Hawkeyes uh, didn't really need to do much. They beat Troy 38-21. Offenses looked better. They're 10th in the conference, 419 yards, and sixth, which you it's a little underwhelming, honestly, for Iowa, 247, especially with the opponents they've played. With a
Giving up
30,
21 points to Troy is concerning.
one of those was a special teams touchdown, which
Oh,
honestly
true.
should be more concerning.
More
But
concerning.
like the offense was better, but an all right win against Troy really doesn't move them up to number 5, which I have Nebraska. They're ninth in offense, 421.3 yards, fifth in defense, 255.3 yards. A good win against Northern Iowa, 34-3, and they play Illinois. Two teams that I don't know if they should be ranked, but they are. Nebraska dominated Colorado in the first half. I don't know if they did much in the second half,
They
but
didn't. Also, it's Colorado. Who knows? Who knows what Colorado is going to come out to?
yeah, I think right now they're not playoff contenders. We got to see how they do against Illinois, but it'll be a very interesting game when Nebraska comes up to Bloomington.
Oh, I'm so excited for that game. That
Mhm.
game better be sold out. I and also like at least like a mid-afternoon night game because like I think that game against Nebraska, if we're still like on track for if we don't like drop a game before that game, that will determine like if we are, dare I say it, a playoff potential team at the
I
end of the
think
year.
we're I think we're I think we're 23% chance of
Dare
making
I
the
say
playoff.
it. Part of me
But if
feels like really uneasy saying
oh
that,
yeah,
but
oh
like
yeah, yeah, yes, I totally understand. Knock on some wood. But
I where's the yeah,
behind
right
you,
here.
behind. There we
I
go.
got
There
I
we go.
got some.
There we go.
We got it.
There we go. Okay. I do not expect this team to be that good. I don't understand. But also FPI is a
Still.
very flawed metric. I'm not going to put
Yeah.
too much stock in it.
No,
Um,
I'm not either. But still, that Nebraska game will be very, very important to see
yes,
where we stand in the Big Ten.
obviously. One
Feel
thing
better saying that.
yeah, one thing that if we win out, not win out, if we win our next 3 games, we are bowl eligible going into Nebraska.
That's crazy.
It is a crazy thought.
Could
I mean,
happen.
Nebraska
Could very well happen.
very well because you got Maryland, got yeah, UNC Charlotte, you got Maryland, and then you're on the road against
Hold on.
Northwestern.
Recording. I need to pull up the you keep going with your
Yes,
rankings. I gotta look something up.
yes. And speaking of playoff contenders, time to go with the 4 I think that are because I moved up a team to playoff contenders. Oregon, with their dominating win against Oregon State, 49-14, gets them into playoff contention after I was very concerned about their first 2 games. Sixth in offense with 461.7, 11th in defense, 298.3. But it's not enough right now to move them up, even though the next 3 teams have buys. That's the main reason. Penn State is still number 3 in my book. Eighth in offense, 15th in defense. Same stats I had last time, 447.5, 310.5. They're facing off against Kent State, who just got whacked by Tennessee, I think.
They
Just
also lost to an FCS school.
pain.
I
Penn State should absolutely dominate this game.
hope so. Oh my
Oregon,
gosh.
Oregon's ranked. These next 4 teams are all ranked in the top 11. Oregon's 9, Penn State's 8. USC, my number 2 is at 11. They're tied. They're still tied fourth with Rutgers on offense, 495.5, but 14th on defense, 305.5.
Mhm.
Is that skewed? Probably. But they're playing against number 18 Michigan. Michigan has not looked great. Flat out, they've got wins, but they haven't looked great.
Is that
USC,
game where is that game being played?
it's at USC, I think.
No,
I know
it's at
it's at
Michigan.
Michigan. It's at Michigan. Yeah, you're right. I don't know why I put versus. I need to make sure that's right. But it's at the big house, but I think USC
I
if
think
they
USC is going to steamroll them. I
yeah
just don't
if
think that Michigan's got it. I have Michigan high. We'll get to it later in my rankings. I have them higher than I feel comfortable having
Mhm.
them, but since it's Michigan, I and they haven't done too much bad other than like what they look like. I kept them high, but I still
that's
think they're
fair.
going to get
That's
steamrolled.
fair. Yeah, but honestly, USC their cap right now is 2, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, I think for now every team in the Big Ten's cap is two, with the
Be-
exception of
yeah, because number one is Ohio State.
yep.
They're leading the Big Ten in offense and defensive yard production. 543 and a half yards of offense, 138 yards of defense. They're number 3 in the
Mhm.
country. They're playing Marshall this week. They are the best team in this conference until they lose.
Yep.
They are the team to beat
Period.
if even if they lose. Like well, if they lose, they're going to drop, but I don't think they will. They are flat out the best team in this conference and possibly a contention for the best team in the country.
I think we'll get to this later, but I think that they could very well win the national championship because I think Texas is probably the best team in the country right now, but I
Hmm.
think number two is Ohio State. I
Okay.
really think that Ohio
Do
State
we
is
know
up
if
there.
Quinn Ewers is playing next week?
No,
So is Archie Manning
Arch Manning is playing next week. Yep,
the next Colts quarterback? And I'm kidding. I'm kidding. Uh, The next Giants quarterback, Arch
next
Manning.
Giant or Panthers.
Oh God, I feel so bad for him. He's going to request to trade out of the Panthers. He is not going to that org. He's
Oh
going to pull an
my
Eli.
god, he's gonna pull an Eli. His who R RG is gonna be like, nah, he not going to the Panthers.
But if he's
He's
good enough to
not.
get drafted and he's starting, the first Monday night, if the first game he started, he's going to be in the Monday Night Football.
Oh,
I
for
bet
sure.
it's either that or that team's not going to be on Monday Night Football because Peyton and Eli are not going to want to commentate his game.
Yeah, they're gonna want to be there.
They probably will. But yeah, those are my rankings. So to recap, UCLA at 18, Purdue at 17, Minnesota at 16, Northwestern at 15, Maryland at 14. Those are teams that I do not believe are bowl contenders right now. Wisconsin at 13, Washington at 12, Michigan State at 10, Michigan State at 11, Rutgers at 10, number 24 Illinois at 9, number 18 Michigan at 8, Indiana 7, Iowa 6, number 22 Nebraska at 5, number 9 Oregon at 4, number 10 Penn State at 3, number 11 USC at 2, and number 3 Ohio State at 1. So Jack, go into your rankings and then we'll
Yeah,
compare and contrast.
mine's not too much different from Alex's. I think there's only like one team that we like kind of significantly disagree on, and we'll get to that
Yeah.
later. But start off, we have like a couple of teams flopped, like one like for example, our first two are flopped. I got Purdue at 18, and what I did is I added another tier below, not bowl contenders, called the cellar, the doghouse, if you may. Like these are the teams that just look awful and
Northern Illinois
might
says hello.
might not win another game this year. Like for real, like Purdue. Come on. Like I just want to give a shout out to Alex here. Like he predicted flat out that Notre Dame was going to kill Purdue for that Northern Illinois game. Like and destroy them. They did 60 points. Like pretty much. That was
I
you should
think
not be losing to a power four team like at home. Like
I
if you're
think
a power four team.
with Notre Dame, it's a little different.
Yeah.
They're not really power forward, they're independent, and two, they're just if Notre Dame is like Notre Dame is supposed to be the superpower. They are. They're flat out supposed to be
Yeah.
the superpower.
I,
And
I, I consider them power four.
whenever they lose, they're gonna go nuclear on the next opponent. as most superpowers do.
Yeah. But still, like a Power Four school should not be losing by almost 60 to
That,
Notre Dame
that
at
is true.
home, who just lost to a MAC school.
Can't wait till 2030, eh?
Yeah. So, I'm excited for that IU Notre Dame series. But anyway,
When we get the glorious opportunity of getting smacked by Notre Dame.
oh my gosh, hope not. But yeah, they just did not show any signs of life. Would be their schedule's tough for the rest of the year. They're really not going to get too much of a break. I think their next game against Oregon State probably is one of their best chances at another win. So we'll see how they play there, if they can turn it around. They probably won't. Who knows?
Yeah,
Um, but okay, and then the other team in the cellar is UCLA at 17. Again, they probably should be 18 after the way they played IU, but regardless, I just think losing by 60 is an egregious enough offense to put you at last. Like, I just think
yeah, agree to disagree. I agree. I think that's very fair.
so. But again, UCLA, this isn't a testament to UCLA. This is more just Purdue absolutely bombing their last game. Um, UCLA looked really bad for the majority of their game against IU. They were a couple of good drives on offense, but other than that, they just looked, and their defense could not come up in crucial moments. Even when momentum was starting to turn, they just couldn't keep it. Plus they lost a couple of really good players on their defense to injury.
Oh yeah.
So I don't know how that's going to shape up for them, but I don't think, again, like Purdue, would be kind of surprised if UCLA won another game this year. And then going on to my tier four, the not bowl contenders, I have Northwestern at 16. They haven't shown a lot of promise this year. They haven't embarrassed themselves, but they have a loss against Duke, I'm pretty sure, which I don't love. So, and they haven't really played anyone super good and have won. So I have them there at 16. I have Minnesota at 15. They had a pretty rough loss to UNC in week one, but they've played weaker competition pretty well, which is more than we can say about other teams. And their defense has seemed to be pretty good. I think they've actually, I think, shut out their last two opponents. Granted, it was Rhode Island and Nevada, so
Yeah,
those are two, not super great teams. But I have a little bit of faith in Minnesota. We'll see. We'll see what they can do. Who do they play? Iowa next week, right? Yeah,
yeah,
Iowa.
it's
So that will be a very interesting game to see how they shape up. Could maybe be better than we think. Who knows? And then I got Maryland at 14. They're the last team in this tier. And again, they lost the game earlier to Michigan State, and it's always tough to start off the Big Ten year with a home loss. Plus their defense is just abysmal.
I like
And they miss Tallulah. So
yeah, like they're the anti-Iowa at this point. A pretty good offense with abysmal defense.
abysmal defense, yeah. And both of those, I mean, maybe Iowa can win in the Big Ten, but I think if you have a really bad defense, I don't think you can win in the Big Ten.
Yeah.
So we'll see what they do, but I think they're probably worse than what a lot of people are giving them credit for, but we'll see how they turn out. And then tier three, this is the bowl contenders, like the teams that I think could be in the running for a bowl game potentially. Um, and I got Wisconsin next at 13. And yeah, they played Alabama last week and they got absolutely dog smacked, and which we all knew was going to happen. And they've also been having trouble putting away some inferior opponents. And I just don't think they just don't look like they've got like a super high ceiling to me. And they lost Howard Van Dyke, which is a huge blow to them, losing your quarterback, I think, for the rest of the season. I'm pretty sure. That's a tough blow. I think they're going to struggle. I don't think they'll make a bowl game, but they could. I think they've got at least the potential to. So we'll see. Then I got Michigan State above them at 12. They got a pretty solid win against Maryland, but like Wisconsin, I just don't think that this team is a very high ceiling. They've got a couple of young guys, especially on offense, that I think will be very impressive in the future. I just don't think that hold on. I just don't think that they're going to be a contender this year for a bowl game. And then the last team in this tier is Washington, and again, losing to Wazoo in the Apple Cup is not ideal. Like they're falling off. And I was a big believer in Washington at the beginning of the year because I thought that they brought enough pieces from Arizona and from other schools to maybe supplement some of the pieces that they lost. But they just have not looked good this year. They
Yeah,
tough.
like, and I'm honestly shocked they really, because the fact that it was close was really shocking to me just because of how well. I gotta find the receiver's name real fast. Because like there was one guy that just went off, like two or three like deep catches on that Wazoo defense that really was not covered well.
Yeah.
I'm surprised they did not go to him more
Hmm.
during that game.
And just yeah, they Washington, I just think I mean they could maybe make some noise. I We play Washington later in the year. I think we'll beat Washington pretty easily if they keep
J-
playing. If Indiana keeps playing how they've been playing, and if Washington keeps playing how they've been playing, I think that could be an
yeah, Giles Jackson is
easy win.
the guy I was thinking of.
Okay.
Um, but yeah, it's just yeah, 452 yards on offense, and a guy that had eight receptions, 162 yards, and one touchdown couldn't get the win. He even forced a
Yeah.
turnover too. Like during that
They
game,
just did.
I just thought Washington was going to win because that Washington State quarterback was just selling in those final few drives.
Hmm.
But
No, but the fact that they couldn't win based off of that just shows like they just don't have a very high ceiling. Like they just probably won't be able to make the plays to win against like better Big Ten opponents. Because let's be real, I think the majority of the Big Ten is better than Washington State for sure.
yeah,
So the road's only going to get tougher, and if they can't win that game
no,
with
it
the
was
chances they had to win, then there's trouble
yeah.
up ahead. And then so with that, I'm going into my second tier, the bowl favorites tier. And to start off this tier, I got Rutgers at 10. And I had them higher initially. Like I had them, I think, at 9 when I did my first draft of these rankings. And then I realized they haven't played anybody good so far. And we really don't know anything about what this team is going to be against tough competition. Whereas we have kind of an idea with some of the other teams on this list. So I think they will be higher in the next couple of weeks because I do like this team. I just don't think they've played anyone. They haven't proven anything so far. So that's why I have them here at 10. And then at 9, I got Indiana. And part of me wants to put them higher. I really, really do. I don't want to jinx it, I guess.
Fair. That's fair. Nine is probably where they should be in reality, but I don't like Michigan. Like
No,
Michigan, yeah, like I have my reasons and you have your reasons. Nine feels right, but
9, I think that's where they deserve to be right now. And I've seen power rankings, Alex, that have Indiana at like 5. And I've just
I'm getting gaslit by Indiana Twitter right now and end up getting them higher.
that's 5 is nuts. Like
Five is
nine
five.
is nine
Five is
is
probably
solid.
yeah. Nine's probably where they should be at the lowest, but five, oh my God.
Like this team looks really good. I
Oh yeah,
think Indiana once Michigan and Iowa, if they get humbled again, if they like I think Indiana has the potential to be better than both. Like a lot of the teams that are coming up soon. I think the next like 3 or 4, I think Indiana can be better than. I just would like to see this style of play, this type of play continue from Indiana against some tougher opponents before
Yeah.
I put him any higher. And that's
Yep.
really the only reason
Yeah, I think
I
Maryland at home is going to be that big one.
be
I
that
think.
bigger test. And then
Yeah.
Northwestern on the road as well.
Yeah.
And then at number 8, I got Michigan, and they just look flat out lost right now. Like the only reason that I have them this high is because they've got some good talent on that team. Like they've got some dogs on that defense. They got Donovan Edwards in the backfield. Like they've got the guys to potentially make something work. They just got to figure out what they're doing at the quarterback position. Like, and they've got to figure out a scheme that I think Alex Orji should be their quarterback just because I think he brings a lot to the running game and you can do like an option type offense with him and Donovan Edwards and maybe that will work. Who knows? But right now they just don't know what they're doing and they've played inferior opponents really really close and then their one big test against Texas they absolutely failed. And they play USC this week and I think that they're just going to absolutely get demolished, but we don't know if that's going to happen. So until that happens, I have them here at 8. And
Yep.
then,
Just looking at some stats, Michigan right now, they're sixth in rushing yards per game with
mm,
176.3, which is behind Rutgers, which leads the conference in rushing yards at 307, Iowa, Penn State, Indiana, and Ohio State. And then if
yeah,
you're looking at opposing rushing yards per game, Michigan's fifth
yeah,
behind Ohio State, which leads the conference at 37.5, Indiana, Iowa, and Northwestern.
mm-hmm,
And Michigan's at 70. Like, I think they want to be a run first offense.
yeah.
They are last in passing yards per game at 153.
That's not surprising.
Yeah.
And I think they need
Uh,
to embrace that more. Like, I think they really need. I like that they're putting, for Michigan's sake, I like that they're putting Orgy at quarterback just because they can, that helps them embrace the run a little bit more and maybe they'll be able to turn a new leaf over
yeah.
there. And
Because
then
their next few games are USC, Minnesota, at Washington, at Illinois, Michigan State, Oregon, at Indiana, at Ohio State. So they have games like Minnesota, Washington, Illinois, and Michigan State where they can just get 4 easy wins off the bat and be 6-2 at worst going into Oregon.
which they'll need to gain some momentum going into that Oregon game, even just to have a fighting chance.
Yeah.
But and then the next team on the list I got is Iowa and Caden McNamara. What a guy.
I mean,
What
Greg predicted it. He
he
predicted
did.
it would
He
happen.
did. We were like, nah, Iowa's gonna be good this year, guys. And Greg was like, nope, Caden McNamara. And
Darren was
he's
selling the
right.
propaganda. Like Iowa's
He's
gonna be great, but I mean,
he's
Iowa.
he was
I
right.
think Iowa's still good. I just
Yeah, I just don't think they're going to be special this year. Like I think they'll drop another couple of games and probably make a bowl game. I think they'll make a bowl game. Like Michigan, honestly, I'm not so sure is going to make a bowl game. Iowa, I think is going to probably make a bowl game.
yeah.
But I like their defense, obviously. They just got to play more consistently
Hmm.
and maybe they can make something happen. I don't know, but I think they are out of playoff contention, them and Michigan. So, and that's why they're not in this next tier. Now, I kind of divided my top tier into two halves. The playoff hopefuls and the playoff favorites. And these 6 teams, obviously, the Big Ten, I think, is only going to have like 3 teams in the
Yeah.
college football playoff. Not all of these teams are going to make the playoffs, obviously, but these are like the 6 teams right now who I think have the best shot at it. And there's a couple teams outside, like Indiana, honestly, probably is the only one outside of this top 6 that I think has like the insiest bit of a chance to make the college football playoff, but they're not part of this tier. So at number 6, I got Illinois. And this is kind of the team that I think Alex and I disagree the most on.
Yeah.
And and I'm not super duper impressed by Illinois, but I really like their defense. I think they play with a really strong intensity, and I think that the committee likes the AP poll likes them. So we'll see what they can do. They've got a ranked win, and they're ranked. And I think so far they've played the year about as good as they can. And we'll see what their offense can do to improve because I think their offense is going to have to improve in order to stay in playoff contention. And I think this game against Nebraska is going to be really, really, really fun
Hmm.
because I think this game is going to decide because Nebraska and Illinois are like the two like up and coming like major up and coming teams in the Big Ten right now in terms of like maybe being like spoiling like the top like the party in the top four like getting into the College Football Playoff. Like those are the two teams that I think are kind of right there. And I think whoever wins is gonna have like that win in order to like really strengthen their case. And I think whoever
Yeah.
loses is gonna drop out of the race completely.
Oh yeah. Like I think whoever loses, they'll still be bowl contenders, but I don't think they're gonna be bowl favorites
Both favorites, yeah. Because
because
especially if they get like blown out or
yeah,
embarrassed,
either team.
either team. And then at number five, I got Nebraska. And Nebraska might finally be back. Might be. Keyword might be. I really like Dylan Raiola. I think this
What you
Nebraska
mean?
team,
What you mean Italian Kermit the Frog?
Patty Mahomes, Patty Mahomes the third. Can't be the second because Patrick Mahomes is actually Patrick Mahomes the second.
Yeah, but
But
like I know he knows what he is doing. That
he
I res
absolutely no way he doesn't know because he has like the
Oh,
hair, he's got the number, and he
he
plays
does
like him.
he
Like
does the pregame routine. He walks like him. Like
like
it
he is 100% doing it on purpose. But
1000%.
but
Uh
like and I like this team. I think that Nebraska is going to beat Illinois. That's my prediction.
yeah.
And I think that this defense, I really like this Nebraska defense. I think their offense is doing enough to keep them in contention right now. I think maybe the offense needs to step up their game a little bit in order for them to keep going up. But I really like Nebraska, but we'll see. I'm not
Yeah,
100%.
we will see.
We'll see. We'll see how they turn out this year. And then I got USC also kind of in this playoff hopeful tier. They could be a playoff favorite, but and they got a really good win against LSU, but I'm a little bit weird about all of these like Pac-12 additions if I'm being real because just the Big 10 plays different than we're
Just
just so
different.
physical. We're just different.
It
What
just
like
means more.
the SEC says we it just means more. Big Ten says we're just different, and
We just
we'll see if USC can adjust to that because they
feed.
really
Feed.
haven't had to play in an environment like the Big House
Yeah.
in a long time, and especially not in Pac-12 play. Oh my gosh!
Oh yeah.
But I don't know if they've played any like crazy non-conference games in recent years where they've had to go to
I
like
think they've been to South Bend a couple times.
yeah, well they go to South Bend, but that's it though. I think the Big House is going to be a lot more intimidating
Oh yeah, it's a
than
big house.
Notre Dame personally. But I still think they're good. I think they could potentially. I think their game against Penn State this year is their big game this year because I think that whoever wins that game is gonna probably make the playoffs in that third spot, and whoever loses will be out. But for now, I got USC out at 4, and then my top three are my playoff favorites, the teams that I think will make the playoffs as of right now. And at number three, I got Penn State. Bowling Green was a tough game. I'm not gonna lie. I
But
may have a bit of a bias towards Penn State, but I'm just gonna say Bowling Green should have been a cakewalk, and it wasn't in any
Honestly,
way, shape, or form.
it's probably Connor Bazelak's best game he's ever played at quarterback, and he was at Indiana.
Yep. And yeah, it was a tough game, but I still like that West Virginia game. They just played so, so, so well. And I think they completely, probably because of how much they were prepping for WVU, overlooked Bowling Green. And they've had like a week to stew and think about it. And I again think they got Kent State this week. And
Right? Pray for Kent
if they
State, which
if
aren't
they
many.
don't if they don't blow Kent State out of the water, then I think we need to have a talk about Penn State not being who we think they're going to be. But I think for now, give them the benefit of the doubt. I think they'll prove that they're going to be a solid playoff team this year. Um, and we'll see how they handle the pressure against like USC and Ohio State. Those two games are going to be huge for them. And then number two, I got Oregon, and Oregon needed this week. They
Oh
needed
yeah.
it because their first two games could have easily been disastrous. Like beating Idaho by 10, Boise State by 3, just not the ideal start that you wanted for this new era of Big Ten football for Oregon, especially one that everyone thought they were going to like exceed expectations and pass with flying colors. And then they weren't, and everyone was like, "Oh, they not the team that we think they're going to be." And then I think this week they kind of proved that they are. They settled down, went against Oregon State, and played really, 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 really well. And I think put them back in top two Big Ten conversation. I still think they're obviously two. They're not one for a reason. I think that Ohio State is still going to probably not crush them, but beat them pretty handedly when they play later on this year. But I like Oregon. I think they're the second best team in the conference, and I have them making the CFP right now. And then number one, I got Ohio State. They're the best team in the Big Ten until they lose, like Alex said.
I
And
know.
again, they haven't, I hate saying that. It pains me so, so much to say that, but it's true. And they haven't played anybody too challenging yet. Like, what? It's been Western Michigan was the last game they played, and they played Akron.
Yes, yes, they did.
So a couple of lower, mid to lower end MAC teams. But again, they blew them both out of the water, absolutely dominated, and their team just is stacked.
Yeah, like
Like that
the only
offense, that defense.
the only concern I have is that quarterback, and he's still a
Me
good
too.
quarterback. Like it's
Will
not like
Howard,
great.
yeah.
Yeah. And like right now, the Big Ten Player of the Year race, I may be biased in saying this, but right now I think it's a battle between Dylan Gabriel of Oregon, Oregon's quarterback, Curtis Rourke, and then Donovan Edwards, and Caleb Johnson from Iowa too. No, Caleb Donovan Edwards hasn't had a great 3 weeks. I'm just looking at it now, but I think it's a four-man race right now, but we'll see. But going into our compare and contrasts, right now, we agree on a lot of stuff. We have Ohio State at 1, Penn State at 3, Nebraska at 5, Michigan at 8, Rutgers at 10, Wisconsin at 13, and Maryland at 14. We swap Purdue and UCLA, swap Northwestern Minnesota, swap Michigan State Washington. Uh, we swapped USC and Oregon. But I think the biggest difference aligns at our 6 through 9.
Yeah.
Um, I had Iowa, Indiana, Michigan, Illinois, and you had Illinois, Iowa, Michigan, Indiana. And Illinois is definitely the biggest thing we differ on because it's a four position difference.
I just think that Illinois, their resume is too good so far compared to other teams. Compared to other teams.
Yeah, that's fair. I don't like I'm not a total big fan of their Kansas win, but we'll see
Mhm.
next week. But I'm going to wrap things up for now. Just for future stuff, we've got predictions tomorrow. We got preview with a new guest on Friday, and then we got post game on Sunday. And be on the lookout. Either this week or next week, I'll be posting a trailer for it. I've got a 5-part miniseries coming up, and
Ooh,
I won't be spoiling it, but all I'm gonna say is it will ruffle feathers of a lot of those older IU basketball fans. That's all I'm gonna say about it.
that's exciting. I'm
So that's it.
intrigued.
So that's it for today. Thank you for all watching. Like, comment, subscribe on YouTube, share on all platforms, and really just ask your friends who is the best basketball coach in Indiana post Bob Knight.